Today we're out here taking a look at the 2016 Toyota Tacoma. This is one of the few compact pickup trucks left in the United States because, of course, Ford and Chrysler have both abandoned this particular segment. Now, the 2016 Tacoma lies somewhere between a refresh and a redesign. That's actually a good thing for this particular segment. A lot has changed inside and outside, definitely some changes under the hood, but some of the important parts have actually remained the same. For instance, this uses essentially the same frame design underneath the body that the last generation Tacoma did, except that that too has been updated and it now uses a new material that is stronger than before. Now, the reason Toyota did that is because the Tacoma is not just about hauling things. Many Tacoma owners are also very interested in taking their Tacoma off-road. The off-road mission and the Tacoma's reputation for being practically bulletproof are the main reasons why we see so many things carried over from the last model. The front end gets a much more aggressive design than we had last time. We have this very vertical, large Toyota grille that was sort of borrowed from the larger Toyota pickup trucks, and then we have a few different headlamps on offer. Ours is the limited model, so we do have projector beams right over there. We also have fog lamps down below that. You'll notice that unlike other vehicles out there, we get more of a traditional bumper right here on the front of the Tacoma. You'll also find a lot of grille openings because cooling is important since you can tow with this vehicle and it's intended for off-road use as well. Now, we do have an air dam right down here on the bottom of the bumper, but it can be removed to give you a little bit of extra ground clearance. Speaking of ground clearance, that's up slightly for 2016 and it's right around 9.5 inches. That means that you actually get more ground clearance in this than certain full-size pickup trucks. This generation of Tacoma does get a little bit longer than the last generation, and very much like every other pickup truck out there, we have a variety of different bed and cab shapes to choose from. We have two different bed lengths and two different cabs. Ours is the long cab and the short bed. Now, in case you're wondering, if you do opt for the long cab and the long bed in your Tacoma, then it will actually be longer than the shortest version of the Ram 1500, which is a full-size pickup truck. The lines between compact pickup truck and full-size pickup truck have never been blurrier than they are now. The Tacoma will let you put just over 1,400 pounds of payload in your Tacoma when properly equipped. Out back, we have this black and body-colored plastic bumper with integrated parking sensors in it. We do have the optional trailer hitch receiver on our model with a 4-pin and a 7-pin wiring harness. Some nice touches in the back are that we do have a standard backup camera, and we also have a fully damped tailgate so that way it doesn't slam down when you want to open it. Because the user set for Tacomas is a little bit different in general than a full-size pickup truck, we also have the availability of this locking cargo cover, which is a very handy feature. Under the hood, the Tacoma starts with a 2.7-liter 4-cylinder engine. It produces 159 horsepower and 180 pound-feet of torque. You'll notice that is a little bit down on power versus the new GM compact pickup trucks. That engine is mated to either a 5-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic, which is an improvement over last year. The model we're taking a look at here, however, is the big news in the Tacoma because they have replaced the old and very thirsty V6 with one of Toyota's more modern V6 engines. Now, this is not an entirely new engine design. This is basically the same one that's been used in a variety of Lexus models in the past. Displacing 3.5 liters, this engine features direct injection as well as an Atkinson cycle mode to help improve fuel economy. Power comes in at 278 horsepower and 265 pound-feet of torque. That's a healthy bump in power over the last generation V6, but it's actually a slight drop in torque, and the torque in this engine comes on 600 RPM higher than last year. On the flip side, you can still get this V6 with a 6-speed manual, but most options out there will be the 6-speed automatic. Fuel economy is up a little bit more than 10% in the V6 engine. This particular model is rated for 18 city, 23 highway, and 20 combined. When it comes to fuel economy, you will find slightly higher highway numbers, especially in some of the full-size gasoline competition. But you'll also find higher fuel economy in that brand new turbo diesel version of the Canyon and the Colorado. However, you should know that the GM turbo diesel engine is a very, very expensive option over there, and it actually costs a little bit more than the turbo diesel in the Ram 1500. When properly configured, you can put 1,440 pounds of payload in your 2016 Tacoma, and towing comes in at 6,800 pounds if you select the right option packages. You'll notice that is right in line with entry-level 1500 series pickup trucks. Because a lot of the dimensions of this truck have not changed in this generation, it means that the seating position of the driver is still very much the same. You're sitting quite close to the floor, your legs definitely out in front of you, so you definitely have this sort of C shape going on. We also have a tilt telescopic steering column that has a very small range of motion. When it comes to front seat comfort, I'm going to give this model 6 out of 10 points. Our seats are relatively stiff, but there's also no power seat option in the Tacoma. So we do have a manual lumbar support right here. The seat slides forward and backward, and then the back reclines. Those are the only directions of motion that you get. This means that taller drivers or shorter drivers may have troubles finding an ideal driving position. I'm 6 feet tall, and if you're taller than me, especially if you have a taller torso, you may have troubles with the optional sunroof in your Tacoma. My hair is definitely brushing the ceiling in our sunroof-equipped model. Again, this seat does not move any further down, and if you're doing off-road activities with your Tacoma, you will end up bumping your head on the ceiling. You will get a little bit more headroom if you do opt for the model without the sunroof. Obviously, since the Tacoma is not a full-size pickup truck, we don't get full-size pickup truck room in the back. Now, these seat bottom cushions are actually a little higher off the floor than the front seats. That gives you a little bit better view if you are sitting in the back. It also means that kids will probably be a little bit happier with the back than some of the competition where the seats are a little bit lower. On the downside, we have the same sort of headroom limitations in the back as we did up front. If I lean back in this seat, my head is touching the ceiling, and the sunroof doesn't really have any impact on rear seat headroom. One of the changes for this generation Tacoma is that the back seats have become a little bit wider. That means that rear passengers now have more room than in the past. It was actually a lot easier to fit 3 child seats across the back. The Tacoma obviously scores 10 out of 10 points when it comes to our exclusive truck comfort index because this is a pickup truck, although we do have a few nice touches like these cargo bins right here on either side. We also have these handy cargo tie downs and this raceway right here. You actually just snap these into place right like that, and then you can adjust them in points along this rail and then tie your cargo down. Our model also has this 400-watt AC power inverter built right into the bed. And topping it all off, we have this sort of 3-section rolling cargo cover that latches and locks into place. Keeping in mind as we go around the interior that we are in the top-end limited trim, so we do have that large sunroof right there, height adjustable seat belts for the driver and the front passenger. Then we have this interesting texture on the leather trim in our model. This design sort of looks like a geometric interpretation of gator skin to me. The doors are a combination of hard and soft touch plastics. We have mainly hard touch plastics. All this black portion of the door is hard, and then just this brown section of our door is soft. The dashboard borrows some design cues from Toyota's larger pickup trucks, as well as something like the RAV4. We have a soft touch portion right here. It's actually a separate piece of pleather grafted onto the dashboard with stitching on it. We have a hard touch upper dashboard, and then we have a moderately sized glove compartment right here. It's not terribly deep, but it is fairly tall. Over on the dashboard, we have 2 large circular air vents that do move in every direction, and they close there as well. Our model also has the up-level JBL sound system with navigation. You'll find that over here on the apps page, and then click on navigation. Our up-level model also has Sirius XM, and you'll find a single-slot optical disc player right up there. If you want to know more about this infotainment and navigation software, go ahead and click that banner at the bottom of your screen. We'll be taken on over to our review in a different Toyota model. This vehicle also has the optional keyless go. We have the 4-wheel drive controls right here, 2-wheel drive, 4 high and 4 low. Now our model does not have some of the more advanced off-road controls that you will find in certain other models. We do have the 2-zone climate control here and heated seats with a separate display for that climate control setting. Now personally, I find this button bank a little bit busy. Be sure and let me know what you think about this down there in the comment section down below. Our model also has the blind spot monitoring package and parking sensor, so we have those option buttons right there, along with the Qi wireless charging mat. This area right down here is the Qi wireless charging area, so if you do have a compatible device, you can charge it there. We have the power option for our electronically controlled transmission, and this is where you'll find the USB input and the auxiliary input. Continuing down, we have 2 very large cup holders with a removable divider between them. And then we have a very traditional console shifter right here. Drive is all the way down to the bottom. It's sort of a gated affair. And if you want the sport mode, we move that over to the left. Now this is not a manual mode as those plus and minus buttons would really seem to indicate. When using this particular mode, the display in the center console will indicate a gear selection, but it doesn't prevent downshifts. It simply prevents upshifts. Moving behind that, we have a very traditional handbrake, a small square storage cubby, and then another cup holder right there behind. Between the seats, we have a softly padded center armrest. It opens to reveal a moderately sized storage cubby. We also have an additional 12-volt power outlet inside. On the driver's side, we have a redesigned instrument cluster with a large tachometer on the left, large speedometer on the right, with fuel gauge and temperature gauge inside there. In the middle between those, we have a color multifunction display that is controlled via this button arrangement on the steering wheel. We have a page select button, up, down, side to side, click to enter, and a back button. Again, this display is where you'll see things like your transmission mode indication. If we move over there to the sport mode, you'll see what I mean. This is not a manual mode. This is just Sport 1, Sport 2, Sport 3, Sport 4, Sport 5, 6, etc. This limits the upward gear motion. This is also where you'll find your trip computer. We can go through our tank average, trip distance, etc. We have a digital speedometer readout. next turn navigation directions if your navigation is equipped. We also have the ability to change our radio station right here from various presets. You can also change your media device. If we click down the center, we can actually move on over to our Bluetooth paired device, for instance, right there. Beyond that, we have vehicle information, so we do have tire pressure in our particular model. Additional screens are available depending on the options you have on your particular vehicle. We have system messages, system warnings, you can view them that way. And then we have settings right here where you can change the drive info, the speed limit, the accent color, etc. Helping tie the Tacoma in with Toyota's larger pickup trucks, we get basically the same 4-spoke steering wheel. It's very thickly rimmed, and we have large sport grips right up top. You'll find the cruise control on a stalk right here behind the steering wheel. This is that button module I showed you earlier, which controls that multifunction display in the center. Then we have our volume up-down, track up-down buttons, voice command button, mode and mute button right here, and a dedicated phone hang-up and pickup button. As you'd expect from a pickup truck, we have a variety of different storage cubbies in this cabin. There are some located right here under the rear seats. We also have some additional storage right here behind the 40% side of the rear 60/40 folding seats. This is also where you'll find the latch anchors for the child seats. Then we have a small grocery bag holder right there as well. When it comes to acceleration, this new 6-speed automatic has a decent impact on performance. Of course, we also get a little bit more power out of this V6 than the last V6. However, we are a hair down on torque, and that torque does arrive a little bit later in the RPM band. That means that 0 to 60 came in at 7.9 seconds, which is a little bit behind the Colorado at 7.4 seconds. However, this is still faster than your average full-size American pickup truck with a V6 engine. The reason, of course, is that this is lighter than something like that Ram 1500 or even the Ford F-150, even though it is aluminum. When it comes to braking, it took 132 feet for this to go from 60 miles an hour to 0. That's right around the same as a base Honda Accord. It all has to do with the weight of this vehicle and the fact that there isn't a whole lot of weight in the back of the vehicle. So it means that the rear tires are not really doing a whole lot of braking for you. That's part of why this vehicle can have drum brakes in the back, and it's really not a problem, to be perfectly honest. Very few people tow with their compact pickup trucks, and even if you do, I don't really expect it to be too much of a problem. But because so little of the weight is in the back of a pickup truck, the rear wheels don't really do much braking. When it comes to handling, I'm going to give the Tacoma an A. This definitely feels a lot more sorted than your average full-size pickup truck. I think it actually handles very well in this segment as well. This feels a little bit more connected than the Colorado or the Canyon. However, basically every truck in this segment is going to feel pretty isolated from the road. There's definitely a lot more play in this steering column than you find in your average compact sedan or mid-size sedan, something like that. So don't expect a sedan-like ride in the Tacoma. Overall steering wheel effort is moderate for this particular category, and the steering is fairly accurate. When it comes to the ride, I was pleasantly surprised for a vehicle that definitely has off-roading in mind. Now, of course, we are in the limited trim, we're not in the TRD off-road edition, but I'm still going to give this a B+. In terms of around town driving, you will find a more compliant ride in your average full-size American pickup truck, or actually certain versions of the Colorado or Canyon, but overall I think this is a fairly decent balance. Cabin noise has definitely improved in this generation of the Tacoma. This came in at 72 decibels, which is about average for something along the lines of a compact sedan. It's definitely a little bit quieter than the last generation Tacoma, and right in there with the new GM pickup trucks. Now, one thing that did disappoint me in the Tacoma out here on the road is the fuel economy. Even though we have that new engine with the Atkinson cycle and the 6-speed automatic, I've still been averaging just barely over 19 miles per gallon. 19 miles per gallon is basically what I've averaged in a wide variety of full-size pickup trucks, even some of those full-size pickup trucks with V8 engines. Now, if you wanted higher fuel economy, you could get the 4-cylinder turbo diesel. It's available in GM's small pickup trucks. However, it is a fairly expensive option. As you'd expect in a new generation of any product, this has become a little bit more polished and a little bit more civilized than the outgoing Tacoma. Some last generation Tacoma users complained about frequent driveline vibrations, specifically from the back of the vehicle. It apparently had to do with the overall design of the rear suspension in the last generation Tacoma. Toyota has made a decent number of changes to the drivetrain and the suspension of this vehicle, and they don't expect it to be a problem. And indeed, I haven't experienced it during my week of driving. When it comes to pricing, you should know that the Tacoma is one of the more expensive entries in this segment. It starts at $23,300 for that 2.7-liter 4-cylinder engine. As we have tested here, which is an essentially fully loaded limited V6 4-wheel drive model, it's right around $40,000, which is solidly into the 1500 or 150 series of pickup trucks. There are really only 3 compact pickup trucks with which the Tacoma competes in the United States. Nissan's Frontier starts at $18,190, being the least expensive entry in this segment by far. Then we have the new GM pickup trucks. The Colorado starts at $20,100 and the Canyon starts at $20,995. Although the Nissan pickup truck is the least expensive in this segment, it's also my least favorite because it is the oldest by far. Its four-cylinder engine is fairly fuel efficient, but it's significantly less powerful than the four-cylinder we get in this and in the GM pickup trucks. The V6 engine that's optional on the Frontier is also much thirstier than this V6 or the V6 we find over there in the GM truck, or actually even most full-size pickup trucks with V6 engines. In addition, the interior of the Nissan definitely looks behind the times. It's styled very similarly to last generation's Nissan product portfolio, and really nothing else in the Nissan lineup uses that same old interior theme these days. This particular interior is not exactly my cup of tea, but it is definitely much more modern and more fresh than what we get over there in the Nissan. Now, both models have reputations for being very, very capable off-road vehicles, so in that respect, the difference is actually very close. However, in the 2016 Tacoma, we get some of those newer electronic systems moved down from Toyota's 4Runner into the Tacoma, which do help you in off-roading situations. Things get a little bit more complex when we start taking a look at the General Motors pickup truck twins, because they're definitely less expensive than the Tacoma. They also have a little bit more modern engines under the hood. Again, this is a new engine for this pickup truck, but it is not a new engine in general for Toyota. The base engine in the Chevy Colorado is smaller in terms of displacement than this four-cylinder engine under this hood. However, we actually get more power out of it, and we get slightly better fuel economy in real-world driving. Its V6 engine is slightly larger than this one at 3.6 liters versus Toyota's 3.5 liters, and we get a little bit more power out of that engine as well. That means that 0 to 60 times are actually better over there in the GM pickup trucks. We also get slightly higher payload and towing capacity ratings in both of those trucks. On the flip side, of course, there is zero indication that Toyota's reputation for bulletproof reliability and high resale value are going to change in this generation of the Tacoma. Therefore, if you do plan on selling your vehicle after a few years, this is going to cost you less overall because it's going to retain a little bit more of its value. Projected maintenance is also going to cost a little bit less on this Tacoma than either of those GM pickup truck twins. Finally, of course, we have off-roading. Now, both are very, very capable vehicles. However, we do get a slightly higher focus on off-roading in certain versions of the Tacoma than we find in the Colorado or the Canyon. In addition, because Toyota sells so many of these, you also find a few more off-roading accessories made specifically for this pickup truck. Because the frame design hasn't really changed much from last generation to this generation of the Tacoma, it also means that some of those accessories will likely just bolt right onto this truck without being redesigned. So you'll definitely find more out there, even though this is a little bit newer than the Colorado and the Canyon. That means that if you like your compact pickup truck with snorkels and brush guards, this is probably going to be the choice for you. My top pick in this segment would be the GMC Canyon. I like its exterior design a little bit better than the Chevy Colorado. At basically under $21,000, it's a few $1,000s less expensive than a Tacoma comparably equipped, and that continues all the way on up its line. The Canyon gets slightly better fuel economy than this model in real-world driving. We also get better acceleration out of its V6, which is probably the engine that I would pick. I found the transmission programming to be a little bit less exciting on this transmission than the 6-speed that we get over there in the Canyon as well. GM borrows the majority of the interior design and style from their Canyon and Colorado pickup trucks from their SUV family, but they also borrow the seat design, and the seat design in this Tacoma right here is definitely a little bit behind the times. Again, it's not as adjustable as we find in the other pickup trucks in this segment. I found it notably less comfortable than the GMC or the Chevy. Now, the one thing I wouldn't pick in that Colorado or the Canyon would be the 2.8-liter turbo diesel. It's only available in a select number of trims, but it is a very expensive option. It's nearly $4,800. That means it's actually more expensive than the considerably more powerful 3-liter turbo diesel V6 that we see in the Ram 1500. If you really want a diesel pickup truck, the Ram 1500 turbo diesel is the model I would get, and I would skip the Canyon. If you're watching from outside the US, you may find comparisons between this and full-size American pickup trucks to be a little bit odd. However, in general, Americans like big things, and for us, the bigger for the same price or the bigger for cheaper is usually going to be better. The price delta between this and the Ram, Chevy, GMC, Ford, etc. pickup trucks is really fairly small. Again, this starts at $23,300, and the delta between this and, say, a Ram 1500 Tradesman or a Chevy Silverado 1500, especially after incentives, is going to be smaller than the delta between the Nissan Frontier and the base versions of this truck. In addition, by the time you add a 6-cylinder engine to this vehicle, which would be standard on those American full-size pickup trucks, you're actually quite close in price. In these particular lineups, it really depends on what you're after. If you're after the larger bed that we find in those full-size pickup trucks, obviously the Tacoma can't compare, because this is only a 5 or a 6-foot bed, and you can get an 8-foot bed in those full-size pickup trucks. You can also get higher payload capacities and, of course, higher towing capacities in the full-size American trucks. On the flip side, the Tacoma will give you better fuel economy if you're willing to go for that 4-cylinder model. That is the important thing to keep in mind, because with the light curb weight we find in the Ford F-150, since it's made out of aluminum now, and its base V6 engine and 6-speed automatic, or the Ram 1500, which now uses an 8-speed automatic transmission, you'll actually get slightly better fuel economy on the highway than in this V6 Tacoma. Of course, you will get better fuel economy in GM's compact diesel pickup trucks or in Ram's full-size diesel pickup truck, but you'll pay considerably more than this particular model in general. Over on the Chrysler side, the diesel upgrade is about a $4,400 option, and over there on the GM side, it's nearly $4,800. It's not available in every trim and every configuration either. One area where the Tacoma really excels over the American full-size pickup trucks is in off-roadability, and it really has to do with the size of the Tacoma. We have a shorter wheelbase than we find in those full-size pickup trucks, a shorter bed in the back, a shorter cab, shorter hood. Everything is a little bit smaller in this generation of truck. We also get more advantageous approach angles, departure angles, and breakover angles in this than we find in the full-size trucks. We also actually get a little bit higher ground clearance in this than many of those full-size trucks as well. The compactness of the Tacoma that becomes a problem when you're cargo hauling is actually a huge asset when you're off-roading in this vehicle. Your personal priorities really will define which pickup truck is best for you in this particular segment, but for me, I would actually say that my top pick is still that GMC Canyon. I actually like the compact size of that vehicle, although I do think that something like that Ram 1500 Tradesman is an excellent value. I'd still probably get the Canyon over the Ram. I would actually take this as a number 2 option because of its indisputable reliability. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the 2016 Toyota Tacoma. Go ahead and click those related videos down there on the bottom. Hit that subscribe button down there if you haven't already, and I'll see you next week.